Oh, welcome back in, folks, to another episode of the Fantasy Football Channel. Today, we got a special one for you. We are breaking down Kyle's first round playoff matchup in our beloved Big Tuna Fantasy Football League. This is a 10-team, two-quarterback league. Very unforgiving if any of you guys have played a two-quarterback league out there. We're going to dissect each position, kind of look at the matchups, see who has the best upside, who we're going to flex, and kind of just talk through it a little bit. Kyle, how the heck are you doing over there?
I'm doing very well. I am happy to be here in the playoffs. I do feel like this team is not as quality of a team as I would hope to have for being in the playoffs. It has been a team by depth all year long. So we'll break down on the show today the positions and who we're going to go for this playoff matchup. For me to take down the dirty, dirty hide mode over there.
Absolutely, and we got to dive right into the quarterback position because if I'm seeing this, it looks like JJ McCarthy is in your starting lineup for round one of the playoffs. And boy, you got to explain that one to me here.
All right. So this is a team, two quarterback. Obviously, I drafted Jaden Daniels, my first round pick, busted basically. I also have CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams were my other drafted quarterbacks, and somewhere along the lines, I scooped up JJ McCarthy. And Caleb Williams, I got to say, right now is quarterback 7. So he does draw Cleveland. However, I've been looking at Cleveland as a great defense, but there are certainly teams who are not so great teams putting up points on them.
Yeah.
So I think here my thought is as I play my best quarterback, regardless of the matchup, in Caleb Williams.
And hearing that gives me the heebie-jeebies because when I watch this game, we're gonna watch Myles Garrett chase him all over heck, and Caleb Williams tends to hold on to the ball too long. He's gotten better, but I have a feeling he's gonna get sacked at least 4 times by Myles Garrett in
And
this
that's
one.
fine. He can get sacked. The guy still got great arm talent. Even against Green Bay, he got sacked.
Yeah.
He can still throw very well, and he's got a lot of good weapons around him and a great offensive-minded head coach.
Do you got to play him? Yes.
He's my best quarterback this season on this team, so I feel like I have to. And then next up, I can either go Jaden Daniels got ruled out. I can either go CJ Stroud against Arizona or JJ McCarthy against Dallas. And my thought is basically I'm going for upside here. It's playoffs. I need points. JJ McCarthy just had a 3-touchdown performance last week against Washington. Washington is a pretty trash secondary. But he threw pretty well. He looked pretty well. He's got a lot of weapons that can catch the ball around him. Another offensive-minded head coach. And Dallas also is, I think, dead last in the NFL against the pass.
Yeah, so I like that you're playing for the matchup. That makes sense. Dallas is hideous on defense. However, Dallas, since they made their 2 acquisitions to their defense is much improved. So I don't think they're the 32nd worst defense in the league to a quarterback anymore. Are they still a bad defense? Yes. And I get your idea with McCarthy and the weapons. I get all that. However, Dallas defense did improve this year. And as we know, teams do not stay the same all year long.
Well, my other option is CJ Stroud.
And I don't love him, and I get that.
Against Arizona, which probably on paper is a not as good of a matchup, right? But not bad. Arizona is probably still a lower end pass defense, and they don't really have a good pass rush.
Yeah.
However, I just don't like what I've seen from CJ Stroud. He looks timid back there. I think he was outperformed by the backup when the backup was in.
He absolutely was, and CJ Stroud has looked terrible. Let's look at 2 other factors with this, and these are not really the most statistical ones, as most of your team plays at noon, and CJ Stroud would play at noon, and JJ McCarthy plays on Sunday Night Football. So in terms of you watching it, it's a non-statistical factor, but a factor nonetheless that I would think about. So I like that split because that way you can sit down and watch JJ McCarthy. However, I bet that Dallas defense on Sunday Night Football in Dallas plays a lot better than the averages.
Think so.
And again, that's just my think. Is that enough to play CJ Stroud over him? I don't know.
I mean, if we look at the weather too, because I also consider weather for some of these scenarios, and
non-factor. Arizona or Houston and Dallas.
They're non-factors in this game. Yep. I will say the one thing that I could see happening with CJ Stroud is honestly a bit of an air out performance and a bit of a get right for the offense. They have had some tougher matchups defensively.
Yep. And then the other the biggest number two to look at is, since they haven't played all games, is what are they putting up points per game? JJ McCarthy's putting up 12.2 and CJ Stroud's putting up 14.3. So that's a 2 point clear difference where Stroud's a little bit better. But then due to the matchup, like we've talked about, that kind of leads back to McCarthy, where I think this is really kind of a true toss up, if you will. However, looking at the players, I think CJ Stroud is currently a better player than JJ McCarthy, even though he's had a terrible season. And I do not like Stroud this year. And Houston's offenses look terrible this year. I know all that. But in terms of who is a better quarterback right here, right now, I give that to CJ Stroud.
I mean, I don't even know if it's their offense. I literally think it's just CJ Stroud has not been as good because Davis Mills came in and ran the offense, I think, better.
Yeah, I mean, he got the ball.
We know it's arguably the best defense in the NFL. So they don't have to do a lot offensively, which is not great for what I think. And I think we should look up the point totals for both games as well. I would assume the Dallas and Minnesota game would be higher. But we should check on that.
Why is that not here right now?
ESPN has JJ McCarthy projected for 15.6 points and CJ Stroud projected for 17.2 points.
Yeah.
So, Justin Jefferson has been quiet for very, very long here. How long is that going to be the case? Is there going to be a breakout game from him? And is this going to be it?
You would think so. You think you got to force him the ball pretty darn soon here, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But
so you're playing CJ in this lineup, and right now I have McCarthy in, but you'd play CJ?
Solely because he's a better player, but I get your other end of it, of a better matchup in Dallas. But McCarthy's only had one game where he's looked good, and that was the last game. Outside of that, his only other good game was against the first game of the year against Chicago, where he put up 22 points. But yeah, I mean, he hasn't looked great. Neither quarterback has. I think Stroud's just a little bit more proven. But again, we're talking, when I say proven, there's an asterisk next to that.
Okay, let's move on to my running backs. Obviously, buddy. Ashton Jeanty was the first running back I selected here with this team, and that was a bit of a rough slide. However, my second running back, James Cook, has bailed me out most of the season, putting up RB1 numbers all season. And Jeanty draws Philadelphia. And as we saw on Monday night, the Chargers, you can run on this defense, especially without Jalen Carter. So, and I think Jalen Carter is going to be out again. So this makes me more confident to play Ashton Jeanty. And, of course, James Cook draws New England, which is a very difficult defense. However, you can't bench James Cook in the playoffs.
No, and then not at all.
Guys on bench that would be potential replacements: R.J. Harvey, David Montgomery, and Tony Pollard. David Montgomery, I'm going to sit regardless here. They play the Rams, tough defense, and it's just been Gibbs' show lately. R.J. Harvey, I'm really struggling with him in RB2 or flex spot here, and maybe in Tony Pollard. I like both these guys right now. I do recognize I don't prefer to play players against Green Bay, and I think it is a good defense.
It is, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing about RJ Harvey and why I can poo-poo that is because the dude's yards per carry is pretty terrible. If you look back at the last few weeks, 4.4, 2.7, 2.7, 2.3, 2.5, 6.6. So, I mean, unless he's going against a terrible defense, you're talking yet less than 3 yards per carry, which is not who I'm wanting to play because of the upside of A.J. Brown, who I know I've crapped on a lot. However, they're finally forcing him the ball. Targets recently, 13, 12, 10, 11. That is wide receiver 1 targets numbers that you need. He's had over 100 yards the last 3 games. You got to flex A.J. Brown in this scenario, and they play a pitiful Raiders defense where actually the only fear you have there is if the Eagles beat up on them so bad they just run the football a lot. So that's the only counter argument with AJ Brown.
RJ Harvey, especially for a PPR format, is going to have quite a bit of upside just because they're going to get on the ball in space.
So everyone knows. Yep,
it's the standard scoring. So it usually gives running backs more value here, and I usually like to flex a running back in this league. However, I seem to be a little bit deeper at receiver right now for upside.
That's it, man.
So, and then Tony Pollard, you're not going to give Tony Pollard any consideration after putting on 25 carries and 106 yards and 2 touchdowns against Cleveland last week?
Nope, sure ain't. Tennessee offense is still in shambles, still tough, and San Francisco is although a hurt defense this year, it's an improved defense with what they got. So no, I'm not. Just the offense. I mean, Tennessee could put up 0 points and you'd be like, yeah, we could have saw that coming. So
Okay.
it's
I
like,
think they had a coaching change. I think they had a coaching change there. So there may have been something that led on to this massive workload for Tony Pollard. And I think there's a chance it can continue. Still, even so, I don't think I could get him in above Genty or Cook just for
no,
basically the touchdown upside and
no,
probabilities, right?
you definitely
And the
cannot.
sheer volume.
Yep.
Um, okay, so we got my RB1 and RB2 locked. So let's move on to the divas and the flex here. So Rashee Rice, George Pickens are my top two and who I've kind of rode for most of the season. When Rice came back, I also have AJ Brown and Mike Evans. Now, Mike Evans right now only projected 6 points, and we don't know his status. Standard scoring again. So George Pickens had a poor performance last week, of course, and so did Rashee Rice. So I would like to think they could bounce back strong, but they do have tougher matchups. Kansas City draws Chargers, who, according to ESPN, is the first ranked receiving defense. So tough matchup there. And George Pickens, Minnesota, the third ranked. So how do you feel about those matchups with those two guys? Are those still the two receivers you would start no matter what?
Yeah, regardless of those matchups, you're starting talent. Those are your two best wide receivers. Those are two top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. There is no question marks that you'll be playing those, and you don't even worry about those matchups at all. Like, yeah, the Chargers are number one. No, Chiefs are gonna need to put up points in that give the ball to their best weapon and receiver wise. And George Pickens could be without CD again in that game and be dealing with a healthy target share even after his dud last week. But yeah, no, those are no brainers. Nothing you need to touch.
Okay. I did move Harold Fannin Jr. into my tight end spot. I'd like to monitor. It would be really nice to see Njoku sitting out to feel even more confident with him. And then probably the biggest question I'm going to have is the flex with a lot of the guys that we've talked about here. And you're telling me AJ Brown is my highest upside player with what I have. Probably true.
Three weeks in a row over 100 yards, 3 weeks in a row over 10 targets. Those are facts you do not argue in football. You play him and let him do his job.
Yeah, and I recognize that, and that's why I currently have them there. And they do have a favorable matchup against Las Vegas. In this league, though, this is standard, so running backs do usually have a little bit better of a floor. But really, AJ Brown, RJ Harvey, and if Mike Evans suits up, that's going to be a tough call to make. Right now, we have AJ Brown in the lineup, and we really like to see a bounce back from Eagles offensively, but we've been saying that quite a bit. I do think their defense showed up to perform. They had a few turnovers last week, and their defense played hard even without Jalen Carter. So I think that's not the problem. I really think it appears to be Hurts. He can't put it together.
Listen to the show that we said many, many months ago, and we highlighted how Hurts cannot throw a football sometimes. He gets the intermittent yips. I don't know what it is over there.
But he does seem to be targeting A.J. Brown heavily. So, yep. I mean, I think at this point in the playoffs, I think you would default to your better players.
Yeah.
So,
I think the only way this changes is if R.J. Harvey had a better matchup. If he played the Dolphins or the Saints or a weaker run defense, I'd be like, yeah, I could easily see you putting R.J. Harvey over A.J. Brown in that. But since you have that matchup there, I think you gotta go the way it is.
Okay. Yeah, I in this league, it's hard not to default to a higher floor with a starting running back, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how I see Harvey and Pollard right now, as they're going to get probably at least 15 touches no matter what, running and receiving minimum. So A.J. Brown, that's certainly not guaranteed, even though he has had 10 targets or so the last few weeks. Likely does it continue? Probably. And offensively, you got to think Hurts is going to shake this off and blow up at some point, whether it's through the air or with his legs. I said that about their defense, and their defense came to play.
I mean, I guess they still lost the game, so they didn't play enough. But what we talked about last week, you said you want them to go on that uptrend. We need confirmation, and so far we're
Yeah.
still on the downtrend. We have not
Yeah.
confirmed or gotten our way back up, so I'm still
Yeah,
out
but
on this
you're the
anything
one who would
Philly.
still start AJ Brown.
Well, because he's the only thing that's outside the norm with that, because he's got over 10 targets and over 100 yards the last 3 weeks. He's the only thing working in that offense right now. And Saquon did have some nice runs last week, and he did finally get over 100 yards, so they finally got him the ball. I think that's where the whole Eagles' success comes from. You get Saquon on the outside with a guard pulling, and you let him make one guy miss, and you get 10 to 15 yards. That's where their offense is. Like, that's where it needs to be, and they've gotten away from getting Saquon the ball. They run him up the middle too much, get him on the outsides, let him create some space, and that opens up their offense, and they have not done that. And then get A.J. Brown on some crossing routes. That needs to be their offense, and they struggle to do that.
It's another team with an offensive coordinator change this year, so we've seen how much that can cause issues, and I think Hurts is really feeling it. But I agree, when they're better at running the ball with Saquon and then going from play action and throwing deep, I think that's when they're at their absolute best. And then you include some rushing with Hurts, which usually he has such a high rushing floor. That's been gone lately as well.
Yeah, it's the lowest rushing he's ever had, and that makes sense. As a quarterback gets older, every year you want that to decrease by like 10% in terms of how much you're going to rush them, and all that. And that they're doing that fine. You got Saquon. You don't need to give him the ball that much.
Okay,
use it when it's needed.
You're flexing AJ Brown on this roster, and you're keeping both Rashee Rice and George Pickens in the diva spot, no matter what.
Yep, just do the situations. Yes.
Okay. I did scoop Jacksonville Jaguars defense against the Jets. I like the matchup this week. The Jets also have their top 2 quarterbacks injured. We don't know who it's going to be this week, so real juicy. Yep. And then there's a look at my bench. Let us take a look at the matchup here this week.
Yeah, who you're going against in hide mode, and I've been pulling this up here. It's less to talk about in terms of decisions. Yeah. Yep. Okay. That's all good to go.
I projected the underdog. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I was say less to talk about in terms of decisions he has to make. The top end of his lineup is going to be real juicy. Both his quarterbacks have beautiful matchups. Lamar against Cincinnati, Jackson against Washington. Yep, and then on top of that, you got Davante Adams going against the Lions. Another juicy matchup there. So he's got a couple high flying, big boom, juicy matchups in there. Now looking at his flex, he's got Ken Walker in there. The only person on his bench who I'd try and maybe squeeze into the lineup is Kyle Manenjai. The Chicago Bears running back.
Yeah, they play Cleveland. That's a decent run defense as well.
Well, you say that, except for who we just talked about had 25 carries and 160 yards against them.
Tony Pollard, the guy you won't let me get in my flex spot.
Yep, that is correct. No, but with Manenjai, he's had 14, 22, and 12 carries his last 3 weeks. And he's averaging 4.1, 5.9, and 4 yards. So he's the only one that I'd maybe squeeze in there. But with how his lineup is, I think it's perfect the way he's got it. Ken Walker against the Colts, who are going to be hurting. I think they beat up on the Colts pretty good. Ken Walker is going to get his share. So therefore, not much to touch of this team. Kind of easy decisions.
Yeah, unfortunately he has some very favorable matchups that
he's got a couple that
pretty
could pop
upset
off.
About.
Yeah, but Lamar's done terrible lately, and Jackson Dart's just coming back again. So
at Cincinnati, that's probably another 50-point projected game.
Yeah,
I really need Derrick Henry to just be the one who falls into the end zone 3 times here.
That's what you would need.
Jackson Dart at Washington is very dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind Kyren Williams at Detroit. Detroit's a decent run defense. Chase Brown at Baltimore. Baltimore's starting to get better, although that's a decent matchup as well. Davante Adams at Detroit. I don't love that. Christian Watson. I'm glad they're playing Denver D at least for the sake of this matchup. Even though I'm a Packers fan, this is the week I need Jayden Reed to go off, and not for me personally, just for Watson not to do so well.
Yep.
Kittle at Tennessee, great matchup. Kenny Walker at the Colts. That's an interesting one. Yeah. And then
decent defense, but I think with the way that game's going to go with Danny being out, I think it's going to be a one-sided game.
I guess we'll see what the Colts end up doing.
Phillip Rivers?
How their backup can perform. That would be a tough week to put him in against Seattle.
Welcome back to the NFL, buddy.
Yikes.
Get all your 15 kids there to watch you get beat up.
Well, he is a bit of a cowboy. He'll really have to cowboy up. And then he's even got the Texans D at Arizona. Man. I really wish this guy didn't sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, well, here that's how it works. So, like, I mean, Lamar just went against Cincinnati 2 weeks ago and only put up 6 points. So if
Yeah,
that if
the
that does
odds
the
of that
same,
happening again are probably zero.
yeah, I'd probably bet over 20 points on this next matchup.
Okay.
All
All right.
right.
You got anything else to say about this one?
No, it's the playoffs, baby. Let's go.
Playoffs. All right. This is a special edition breakdown on the Fantasy Football channel of a 10-team, two quarterback league. And we do promote these two quarterback leagues because they are mayhem with the quarterbacks. Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Football channel. We will catch you guys in the next one.